Hey, so for everybody out there listening, we're going to be talking with Shane over at Brick.bucks Lego Investing. First, I want to thank you for coming on and spending time with us today, Shane. Just love for you to jump in, tell us about yourself, and let our listeners know why you're here.
Yeah, heck yeah. Thank you, Garrett. Excited to be here. So, yeah, my name is Shane and I teach Lego investing. So, I've got a YouTube channel and I kind of make content around buying Lego sets while or before values go up. And we all know that Lego sets will, they're real collector's items and they can go up in value over time. And there's a real kind of there's a community of people out there who really love to buy those sets and sit on them while values go up and different things. So that's really what I specialize in. But I'm a massive Lego fan at heart. Grew up on Lego as well. So I'm excited to chat to your audience and kind of share some of my story.
No, it's great, Shane. Thank you so much. Yeah, I've definitely been interested in myself. We've done a little Lego investing, which we'll talk about here. What else? Where are you from? What are some of your other interests?
Yeah. So I'm originally from Ireland. You can probably tell from the accent that it's not a US accent, but I do live in America. I'm in New Jersey. So I moved to the US around almost 7 years ago now. And I moved for a work opportunity. But since then is really when I started building up my Lego investing kind of business. And over the last couple of years, I've been able to turn this into a big kind of e-commerce business, multiple six figures a year now on selling on eBay and Amazon. And outside of that, outside of business, I'm a big business nerd. Like you'll find me listening to big business podcasts or reading business books. Outside of all of that, I have a handful of other major interests. Lego obviously is one of them. But I'm also interested in other types of investing, like stocks and real estate and different things like that. And snowboarding. Although I haven't been for a very long time, but it's one thing that I have a massive passion for, and kind of I'm less into the outdoors now as I used to be, but definitely kind of have some I guess some hope that I'll get back to some of those hobbies as well.
Nice. Yeah, I've been a lifetime skier, but it's been a minute since I've gone out.
Love it.
My cousin always plans this massive trip, and every year we're like, "Oh, we'll go, we'll make the time," and then we're just price and time. We're like, and we'll skip this year. We'll go next year. But we're just like, we're interested. Don't forget about us.
Like in the US, I feel spoiled because I don't even need to fly to get to a slope. Like I can jump in the car. I actually brought my board over, which was a lot of effort to fly over with the board. And I still haven't used it since I got to the US, which is terrible. So I have no excuse. Next winter, it's got to happen.
We'll keep ourselves to that. We'll hold
Yeah.
ourselves. Well, great. No, I always start, of course, with anyone listening that's heard some of the other episodes. Is I'd love to know if you could have a minifigure that represented you. Now it can be anything. It doesn't have to look exactly like you. If you want to do it as Iron Man, whatever. What would it be?
Love it. Yeah, I mean, like I said, business like learning about business is one of my favorite things to do, and so I would have to say he would have one of those little tile, one by one flat tiles of a book in his hand, maybe some sort of business book, nerdy, kind of like the bankers in the Brick Bank type of minifigures, right? In that Lego set, that's kind of what I'm thinking. That would probably represent me pretty well. Now, in terms of like superheroes and some of the more crazy stuff, I'd have to pick maybe one of the Harry Potter or Star Wars minifigs. I was asked that question: would you rather be a wizard or a Jedi? And I'd have to say I'd probably be able to do more with the wand, right? So I'd have to go with maybe Dumbledore. Let's let's say Dumbledore from the Harry Potter. Uh,
Yeah, the elder one probably would do better than just a lightsaber and the Force.
I
Uh,
think so too. But some of the
yeah,
Star Wars fans are going to passionately disagree. I'm sure, but I agree with you.
I'm both. So I'm impartial. If I could be a wizard and have a lightsaber, I'll take it.
Yeah, yeah, me too. I'm like massive fan of both. Both these brands are actually my two favorite like franchises in history. So, and we're spoiled as Lego fans. If you love Star Wars, you love Harry Potter, you're just completely spoiled as a Lego fan.
Oh yeah. So to kind of get back to the beginning of things, what started first for you? Was it the love of Lego or the love of business?
It was Lego first because I was building Lego at a very young age. I was probably 8, maybe 9, and I was building, the old Lego system sets, the Western type sets. The Fort Lego Redo was one of the ones that I really loved at that time. It was like this Western kind of fort, and we had like the Count Batlord, the Batlord's Castle, and the Temple of Anubis, the Egyptian base sets and everything. I loved Lego at a very young age, but I kind of lost that love, similar to what we were just talking about with snowboarding. I lost that love a little bit when I went off to, I became a teenager. I went off to college and I started kind of spending my time in different places. And so a good few years went by without me really looking at Lego at all. I moved to the US. So I still actually have some tubs of my old sets. I'm really excited someday, whenever I have kids, to crack those open because they're in my parents' house, in my parents' garage somewhere. With all those old sets, it's going to be probably one of the most nostalgic days of my life when I crack those open. I've been biding my time for it because I think it's going to be a very special moment. So I still have all those old sets, in tubs. And that came first. It was a love of mine for many years as a child that I lost for a few years. Got back into it, in the last couple of years. I moved to the US, and for some reason, one day, just was feeling like I wanted to build Lego again and started researching it again. For anybody who went through that journey of, you had a big gap in between when you built Lego sets, when you come back to it, it's actually really shocking because the improvement that the Lego group made during that time in terms of the designs is just unbelievable. So when I came back, I started seeing things like the modular building series and some of these sets that are really intricate and really detailed did not exist back when I was a child building these sets. They were very basic. And if you build one now, it's almost a shame how basic they are. But, that just shows the progress in the designs and everything. So the last couple of years, I've been rediscovering some of that love. So around 2017, I think, is when I rediscovered it. And it coincided with me realizing about the values going up over time as well. Because as I started buying them, I started looking for my old sets that I loved as a child and realized the values go up over time. And that's where it started to become more of an investment passion as well.
Yeah, I know the community calls it the dark ages during that time that usually a teenager gets a little bit away from it because it's either too nerdy or they have a new hobby that kind of replaces it. I'm lucky enough to never have that, but you're right. There were times that the Lego group, I always consider it like a transition from the 70s cars in the United States to the 80s and 90s, which were blocks of just metal. For some reason, people thought they looked good, and they did not. And slowly coming back to the new era and seeing some of those sets over time, you do start to realize as you get older, you're going back because I have the same thing. I have bins at my parents' home that have like the old McDonald's set when they had that partnership. When all the adventures, Rock Raiders was my favorite theme, so they're just stashed in there. I can still the old rockets. Do you remember the rocket that you press the button and it would actually have the engine sounds out of it?
I don't
I
think
think it
so.
was pre-City. Um, but if you pick up the bin, it still has battery power for some reason after like 10 years, and you'll hear it. But
Yeah.
one day I'll find the nostalgia and the time to go and build those, or eventually get them to our house here. But as you continue to grow, talk to me about an example. What was one of the sets that you really wanted and started to see the change and the evolution of, okay, well, this is going up, maybe I have something here in the business side?
Yeah, I mean, there was a very clear example. It was the Fort Lego Redo set. So that's a fort set that I built when I was 10 years old or whatever, and I just had this memory of it and love for it, and so I started searching for it on eBay. I was wondering what could I get this for in new and sealed condition. What are these going for today on eBay? Do any of them still exist? Like, I don't know, because at that time I didn't really understand these cycles that Lego sets go through. The fact that there is schedules, there's retirement dates, and the retirement dates are decided before the set even gets released, right? So all of this stuff was foreign to me because when I was a Lego fan when I was younger, I didn't think about any of that stuff. I just saw this Lego set looks cool, right? And I just, that was it. So I didn't understand the business behind it or the business that the Lego group are operating. The fact that they have these manufacturing cycles, the fact that they want their fans to buy more products from them. So they retire the old stuff, bring out new stuff so they can use the same shelf space in the retail stores, the same shelf space in warehouses for new products that the old fans will want. And so none of that, I didn't understand any of that years ago. But when I started in around 2017, when I started looking at Lego again as a fan, and I kind of looked up some of my old sets on eBay, I think Fort Lego Red was selling for around $550 on eBay. Now, that was an $80 set back when I was interested in it. And so I was kind of thinking, like, what happened here, right? Like, why did it go up so much in price? Are people still buying it? I started realizing, yes, tons of people were still buying this older set on eBay, because I couldn't really believe that people would pay, 6 or 7x the MSRP for a set, right? Because you could have got it for 80 and now you're paying 550. Like, are people really paying that? But if you go on eBay and you look for sold items, you can actually see the sales. You can actually
Hmm.
see the sales of the set. So, I was really kind of caught off guard by that, and I was kind of like, how is this real? And so I started searching for more sets. I searched for the Temple of Anubis, like all of the ones that I remember from when I was younger, and I've seen the same thing over and over again. And so then I got a little more curious. I started digging in a little bit deeper on, okay, well, when did those sets stop getting manufactured? Why can't I go into Toys R Us right now and buy these sets anymore? Oh, it's because they stopped making them like 23 years ago, and so ever since then, these sets have become scarce, and over time, values have gone up. And so then it's just like any other collectible, right? It's like Pokemon cards or Yu-Gi-Oh cards. But I just didn't understand the scheduling of Lego sets before. And when I started realizing that, not only did I realize it was like collectibles, like Pokemon cards, but I realized that it was actually a lot more predictable than most collectibles, because most collectibles, you don't really know exactly how long it's going to be on the shelves for before it retires and before it starts to become scarce. But with Lego sets, you can actually find that stuff out pretty easily. You can find out, the exact cycles that they go through, because it's predetermined. Lego Group has a manufacturing schedule. You can figure that out. And so you can buy the items as collectibles right before that happens, right before they retire. And so then, your collection or your inventory, whatever you'd like to call it, it starts to go up in value reasonably quickly, because you buy it right before it starts to become valuable, if that makes sense.
No, no, it does. And I mean, I don't know all the schedules myself, but I always think of like the Ultimate Collector series is usually every 2 years.
Yeah.
Brickheads are like one.
Yep.
It there are, you can definitely, as you grow into the community, you can see that more. But someone who may be entering it new might not understand that. And the same thing with, as you said, collectibles such as Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh or whatever it is. They have their time, but Lego has been constant for however many years with this. And
Yeah.
like a set I can think of is the monorail. They don't make the monorail parts anymore.
Hmm.
So if you find one, it's hundreds of almost $1,000 to find it. And for me, that's like a white whale because I love monorails. It's such a cool idea, and hopefully they'll eventually come back with something as the roller coasters have become so popular. But sets
Yeah.
like that created nostalgia, and now how would you say you've transitioned to the more modern instead of finding those older sets to collect and resell?
Mhm. Yeah, the thing about so there's different business models that I see people use, right? Because I make content about Lego investing, so I talk to people every single day, right? I've got communities and different things, and I talk to Lego investors and collectors all the time, and different people approach it in different ways. And as you mentioned, like, some people actually buy the older stuff and do that as an investment. And so, like, if you look back at some of the old modular buildings, like the Green Grocer, it's selling for $1,500, probably more now. I haven't checked it in a while, but $1,500 in new condition. Some people would go and buy that Green Grocer today. It's been retired for like 14 years or 13 years now, and they'd buy it today and then wait 2, 3, 4 years and see what happens with it. In my opinion, that set and a lot of sets after they've been retired a long time have already seen a lot of the price growth already. I personally prefer to buy right before retirement, because you can pay under the MSRP instead of paying incredibly, like, high above the MSRP. You can
Hmm.
pay under the MSRP, and then the value, that the value is going to start to rise after the MSRP. So I like to do it that way, and that's just my preference. So the other thing I would say about that is that when you do it the first way and you go to try and file old vintage sets to invest in, it's not very scalable. And the reason for that is because you need to be on eBay trying to find a good deal, right? You can set up some alerts on eBay, Green Grocer deals, and if it's less than $1,200, send me an email and I'll go buy it. And you might make a couple of $100 from that, but you're only going to find one of them in a month or maybe two, right? And it's not going to be very scalable. Now, I've done some of this in the past, with not just Lego, but also with comic books and different things. Like I've done some, um, like investing in old vintage comics and trying to buy them one at a time by finding a great deal. It's not very scalable. And I really wanted to build a business because I just really want, like, I've always been interested in running a business. It's something that I had a passion for. And I wanted to create a kind of a sustainable income in my life, outside of my job, right? I wanted to find something I could do on the side of my job that was kind of a sustainable income in an area that I love, which is Lego. So I needed to find a way to make it more scalable. And the way to make it more scalable, I found, is by buying stuff that are not retired yet, because then you don't just buy one of them, you can buy 20 of them, right? So if you look at a retiring modular building, instead of the green grocer that's been retired 14 years, you buy the police station or the bookshop that are retiring this year, and you try to get them at a good price. And then you know that next year they're going to start, like, manufacturing is going to end this year because they're about to retire. Next year they start, the supply that's out there on eBay and Amazon starts to get smaller and smaller and smaller, because no more supply can ever make it to the aftermarket because manufacturing is done.
Hmm.
And so the price starts to go up. And so if you do it this way, it's scalable, because I can buy 20 police stations, right? It's a $200 set. So 10 of them, is $2,000. 20 of them is $4,000 of an investment that I could make on just the police station. I could do the same for bookshop. That's $8,000 invested, right? So you can see the scalability of it, and how if you do it this way, you don't need to go on eBay and just try to find one or two deals. You can find one deal like the police station at a good price and buy 20 of them, and all of a sudden you can quickly build this into a bigger business. And so that's really what I started to learn about, that's why I started to go in that direction of newer sets, at larger quantities. So more like 20 of a set instead of one.
And it makes total sense, especially as the time, because you already know the scheduling. So at that point, it kind of works out in a shorter, almost shorter term, at definitely a higher return on your investment in that case. What do you think of, like, what's your personal thoughts on resellers at like conventions? Because they usually have those massive, the older sets, and they mark them up. Like I always think of like the Lord of the Rings when it did its first wave, but they only have one,
Yeah.
and they'll mark it at $1,000 or whatever it'll be.
Yeah. Yeah. I think resellers get a really bad name. And I think what you just said is actually one of the reasons for it, right? Because some people really try to mess around with it, and they mark up their prices to a level that's beyond what the market is willing to pay for or what's fair for people.
Hmm.
I have a very strong belief that, what we do as Lego investors is actually providing a really good service, both to the fans and to Lego Group, because Lego Group, they can't keep these sets in stock because there's not enough storage space in the world for them to release a couple hundred new sets every year and keep all the old stuff in stock. So they can't do that. And if there were no Lego investors out there or collectors buying up the old stuff before they disappear for good, fans in the future would never be able to find them, right? Like if you are a Star Wars helmet collector, you would not be able to finish your collection because you cannot find Stormtrooper or TIE Fighter. Like you just can't get them anymore. So the fact that there are people out there who are investing in those sets, and then sure, they'll mark up the price because they need to obviously make it a viable thing for them to do. If they didn't mark up the price, why would they do it, right? So if they didn't mark up the price, the set would disappear for good and fans can't find it anymore. So they mark up the price a bit to cater for the fact that they're storing the set for a year, which is a service. And then everybody wins. The fan wins, the Lego investor wins, and Lego Group also win because fans are buying their new products because they're trying to complete a collection because they bought the old stuff, and it's kind of like a circular like thing, right? Now, people who, like, I sell at the market price, right? I sell, like, and the market price is really what fans are willing to pay. And so when you go on eBay, what is the last 10 sales? That's the market price, right? So if the last 10 sales is $200, I'll sell at $200. I'm not going to go out and try to ask for $400. That's what people are doing at the conventions. That's what people are doing, like when they're really trying to take advantage. I don't like that. And I think that they make a bad name for what I really believe is a pretty good service and a pretty fair deal when it comes to Lego investing in general. And I think, when it's done right, like I have no negative opinion towards resellers whatsoever.
And I think you put it perfectly, because you're right. it is a little outrageous, and it does turn people away from the idea of it. And seeing, some people do the same thing on eBay, because I do this. I mean, I look online. I was lucky enough to have a TIE fighter helmet, and I was trying to collect them all. But anytime you go in the store, they're gone. So then you start to think, okay, what are they going for? What does it look like on eBay? And then you go in the sales, and some might be $80 because somebody didn't pay attention that it's it's about 55, 60, and you could have got it at that point.
Yeah.
It's a whole process, like you said, and especially from your perspective, being the seller. It, through eBay is one aspect, but you also talked about Amazon Marketplace,
Yep.
and that I feel like that's a different animal.
Absolutely. Yeah. Selling on Amazon is a very different thing than selling on eBay. And mostly is different from both directions, from buyer and seller perspective. And from the seller perspective, it's different because Amazon, it's a lot more scalable. And a lot of the businesses that sell on Amazon, they're bigger businesses. eBay, when I think of eBay, they do have a lot of big businesses selling on there, but it's also mixed in with a lot of mom and pop, like people just selling stuff in their attics and stuff like that. Amazon, nobody is selling stuff in their attic on Amazon, right? It's businesses, it's people who are trying to build a business. And so that changes it immediately. Now, when it comes to the specifics of Lego investing, Lego sets sell at higher prices on Amazon, and you may have seen that. So for all of the people watching this, if you are buying Lego sets as a fan and you want to build Lego sets, check eBay, right? Because Amazon, the prices are higher. Typically, you're going to pay an inflated price on Amazon. So eBay or Bricklink are typically better places to source or to buy from. But if you're a seller, sell on Amazon because you can sell for a higher price. And the reason you can sell for a higher price on Amazon, I actually think it's fair, is because convenience, right? Amazon have the most convenience you can ever ask for. They have 2-day shipping. They have free returns. And Amazon will side with the buyer always. And so as an Amazon seller, this is frustrating. But whenever, the buyer wants to return something, they don't even like, I don't really want to say this in case anyone listens to this and goes and does this, but you don't even have to include the minifigs in the box. You can send it back and get your money back, right? So it's Amazon are very lenient to the buyer. And as a result, people pay a little more on Amazon for that premium service of the quick shipping, the quick returns, everything just handed to them. eBay, a little bit more doubt from the buyer perspective because you don't know who you're dealing with. A little bit less sure about the return policies. Maybe the communication is a little slower. The shipping times might be a little slower. All of these things. So Amazon typically have a little bit of a price bump as a result. So if you are a seller, you could sell on Amazon and sell for a little bit higher price. But if you're a buyer, probably just go to eBay and get them cheaper.
Now we've talked about like the main ones because as you said, Amazon is very big, the business scale, and then the mom and pop. But what
Yeah.
about Bricklink? Because they
Mm-hmm.
do the same thing, not and piece it out as well. But some sets is another option.
Yeah, it's a great option. Like I've got people in my community that sell on Bricklink as their primary marketplace, and they do great. Especially if you want to combine Lego investing with a Bricklink part out store, they go hand in hand really nicely. And so I work with people who, they have their Lego investing sealed set business, and then whenever a set maybe doesn't hit their thresholds in terms of values going up over time, they'll part it out, or they'll part out 10 copies of it and keep 10 copies of it as an investment sealed and stuff like that. So they combine nicely. So if any of your audience are Bricklink sellers, you could consider also being a Lego investor, keeping some sets sealed. So you can sell the sealed sets on Bricklink just like you can sell parts. They have an entire catalog of all the sealed sets. You can list your items for sale there. As a seller, it's got lower fees. So you could, like, the fee on Bricklink is 3% plus your payment processor, which is another 3%. So you're talking about more like 6% fees on Bricklink versus on eBay, more like 13%. On Amazon, it's closer to 20% sometimes, depending on the price of the set. And so much lower fees. Now, the flip side of that is that Bricklink is a specialized marketplace. And so the audience of buyers that go to Bricklink are very sophisticated Lego fans, right? They know what they're doing. They know Lego very, very well. And as a result, prices tend to be lower because they're looking for a great deal. They're doing their due diligence. They're researching what they're going to buy. Versus Amazon, where people want the convenience. Maybe it's like a mother just trying to buy a birthday gift for their daughter. They're just going to just quickly buy that Duplo set, even though the price is double what it was a year ago. There's much more impulse buying on Amazon. because it's a broader marketplace of the entire country or the entire world, depending on, different marketplaces of Amazon. On Bricklink, it's much more sophisticated Lego buyers. That changes the pricing, it changes the communication styles, it changes the relationship with the buyer and the seller. But it also could mean more repeat business, because on Bricklink, you can put a little more of your brand into your store, so you can have your logos and have your business cards in the packages that you ship out and stuff like that. And so then you can kind of build a relationship a little more with the buyer, send them back to your website or ask them to come back. Here's a coupon to buy from me again in the future. And so you can kind of have some more repeat business, and there's a little more of that on Bricklink. On Amazon, there's none of that really. Like, it's actually against Amazon's terms of service to include like business cards in your packages and stuff. So there are a lot of nuances between Bricklink and Amazon, but both are viable options. I know people who are very successful on both. I personally don't sell on Bricklink, but I have a lot of friends who do great. So it's really just kind of weighing up the pros and cons, really.
Yeah, and I like you said, it's scalability. Amazon has a massive amount of people that are using it, and Bricklink is very niched. So I could talk about the amount of times I said Bricklink or anything like that. People are like, "What?" Now, unless you're in the Lego community, will you understand that? Oh, okay, this part or this, and you can find down here. Anytime I do a mock, oh, and like, yeah, I go to Bricklink secondary market. They're like, oh, how does that work? It's a whole process, and as you continue to build it, it takes time. Like you said, it is that personal side, but you're not reaching the same thing. And with Amazon, I learned this the couple months ago, that the logo is meant to look cheap, like a cardboard box, because then in your mind, you think everything is cheaper on Amazon, because
Wow.
a lot of the time it is. But like you could look at I purchased a ring light recently. It's $30 because I thought it was cheaper. It is cheaper as in quality. Instead of buying the $90 one I could go and see at Best Buy down the street. So it that's exactly what it is. Your Lego set that you sold could be 30% higher than what it is retailed at Lego, but people want that convenience.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And on Amazon, they don't show the MSRP. So, when you're looking at a Lego set on there and it says $90, you actually have no idea that it was a $60 set 6 months ago. You just don't know that. You don't have, unless you're a Lego fan who knows the MSRP, right? Like,
Mhm.
we would know it when we go and look at a Star Wars helmet set and it's 110. Like, we're like, wow, like, it's selling for almost double what it was 6 months ago. But a lot of, you know, of the broader audience of Amazon, they just see 110 for this Lego set, and they think, would it make my child happy? Like,
Mhm.
my 10-year-old son has all the other helmets. He really wants this one. It's 110. I'll get it. Right. So so Amazon don't make it very clear in terms of those things. And so you get a lot of impulse buying as a result. You get a massive amount of traffic.
Yeah.
And the convenience factor also, and even those who do know that the prices are inflated are also happy to pay it a lot of the times.
It's a blessing and a curse to know. I mean, I've gone to flea markets and I'm like, "Oh, that's way marked up," because I have that knowledge, but most people don't. W-
Mhm.
And to kind of jump into another section, when I think of some sets, what are some things that happen in your line of investing that might impact you? Bringing up the example of the ship in the bottle. It was first released and then they re-released it not long after. How did that impact you?
Yeah. So it's a great question, and this is the kind of thing that would deter some people from getting into Lego investing, because they think, what happens if the set does not retire? What happens if it gets re-released? Here's the great thing about this is that as long as you learn how to buy at a great price, right? If you learn how to get a set for 30% off, which is a skill set, right? And we can learn it. We can all learn how to do this, because there are numerous ways that we can get discounts on Lego sets. And if you're a Lego fan, you've already figured out a lot of the stuff, so you can translate those skills over to Lego investing. But there are so many different ways. Like, you could use Rakuten to get cash back, right, when you go to purchase. If anyone has never
Mhm.
seen that, go check it out. It's amazing. They just pay you to do your shopping, right? It's from clicking their links. You could use credit cards to get reward points, which can give you free vacation. You can use things like coupons. You can use gift with purchases to get some of your money back. You can get VIP points. And then there's the regular retailer discounts. There's all these different things we can stack together to get sets at great prices. And if you do that, then no matter what happens, even if the set gets re-released or it gets extended or anything like that, usually you're going to be able to get your money back either way, right? Because if you bought it for 30% below retail, even if you sell it at retail, even after you pay your fees on eBay or whatever, wherever you're selling, you'll get your money back. So that's the first thing. So anytime I've had, this happen, I put out a video recently of a set. It was the Porsche 911, the Technic Porsche. And I bought it 3 years ago, I think, because it was supposed to retire at the time. The retirement date got pushed out, got pushed out again, got pushed out again. I should have sold it back then to get my cost price back. I didn't, but recently I dug it out and I sold it all. And I ended up breaking even, like actually a little bit higher than breaking even, which I think I see it as a failure because I could have invested that money into another set. So it's definitely not what I wanted the outcome to be, but I still got my money back, right? I didn't lose. And most people who invest in business inventory, if it doesn't go to plan, they lose, right? Because sets, our inventory, like it doesn't go up in value over time, or they overpay for it and stuff like that. And usually we are pretty okay because either you're just waiting longer, like if the set gets pushed out a year, the retirement date, you're just waiting an extra year and then you'll still make the profit you thought about, or you can liquidate it, sell it off, and make your money back. And usually those are the two options that I have when I'm faced with what you just mentioned. I was an investor in Ship in a Bottle, actually. So that was a set that I had when it got re-released. The other thing I would say about that is re-releases are very rare. So, I've the same year that Ship in a Bottle was re-released, Saturn V Rocket was also
Mm-hmm.
re-released. But those two, they're the only two straight re-release sets that I can remember in the last 6-7 years. And straight re-releases where like they don't change anything about the set. They literally just take the set, put a new set number on it. Most re-releases, kind of like what you'd see with the Millennium Falcon or the Slave One or TIE Fighter, it's like it's a new version would come out. It's not the same set, it's a new version. So you get a new Millennium Falcon or a new Slave One. That's a little more common. Even that we can avoid because with Lego investing, you can just buy sets that are very unlikely to ever have a
Mm-hmm.
re-release. And that just means buying a set that is not the core focus of the theme. So, for example, in Star Wars, Millennium Falcon, they're always going to want a Millennium Falcon on the shelves, right? There's never going to be a time where they don't want a Millennium Falcon. So I don't invest in a Millennium Falcon. But, or Harry Potter, the Hogwarts Express, always going to want a new version of the Hogwarts Express. But the Beauxbatons Carriage, right? The Harry Potter set that was around a couple of years ago, very unlikely to be re-released because so it only appeared in one book, in the fourth book or movie, and it was a very niche scene. And so when you look at the Beauxbatons Carriage, you kind of know right off the top that like this is less likely to be re-released than the Hogwarts Express, right? And so those are kind of some of the things that I think about when I'm buying it. But even if I did buy the Hogwarts Express and it was re-released, usually I'll just break even. I'll just sell the stuff, and get my money back and put it into a different set. I hope that answers. I know I kind of went in a couple of different directions there, but that's how I think about it.
No. That makes perfect sense. Definitely when it comes to what you're picking, and I think that's a good transition to like how you select your sets because I think of some areas only have limited. A good example would be like Shang-Chi. I was just talking about that with my wife. There's what, three sets that came out for that entire movie, maybe two, I think. And
Mhm.
then there's some genres that come in video that lasted a year or two and then they're gone.
Yep.
W- how do you personally and in the community decide on where the best investment might be or could be? Because I mean, from what you just said with the Porsche 911, you make mistakes too, and this is your like job. Like this is what you enjoy to do, and there's still mistakes that are made.
Yes, absolutely. Everybody makes mistakes for sure, and it's totally fine. And we got to be okay with that because we learn every time. Um, so here's the thing: in the Lego investing communities, a lot of people just talk about the flashy stuff, and they talk about the sales and the discounts. Right? They're like, "Oh, this set got dropped 40%. I'm going to go buy 10 of them," and they don't think enough about the dynamics of the set of what's going on in that set. And here's what I think a lot of people are missing: is the reason that Lego sets go up in value is because of supply and demand, right? Taking it back to economics 101, you probably heard in college and different things. It's supply and demand. If you look at real estate, it's the same thing. Why do real estate prices go up? It's because supply is low. There's less construction. There's less new apartments being made. Or demand, and maybe demand is high and that's causing price going up. Or price is coming down because there's less demand and there's too much supply. And so it's the exact same thing with Lego sets. So what we should do is find Lego sets that have a higher chance of having lower supply and higher demand. Those are the two things that I'm thinking about, right? So most Lego sets have high demand, which is great because it's the hottest selling toy brand in the world. And so the demand for Lego sets in general is incredible. But some sets are a lot more in demand than others. And you can see that stuff. You can start to find some data about that. You can look at things like internet search traffic, to see which Lego sets are getting searched about the most. You can look at things like conversations and internet boards. You can look at review count. You can look at sales rank on Amazon. Sales rank is a number you can actually see on Amazon. It's going to show you how fast things are selling on Amazon. This is all stuff that'll tell you about the demand of the set. Okay. Now, when like if you're comparing a couple of sets against each other, thinking about which one to invest in, you can check which one has higher demand according to some of these signals. Now that's dumbing it down a little bit, of course, but that's pretty much the high level of what I do when it comes to the demand side, right? On the supply side, it's the same thing. We want to find sets that have low supply. Now, in the future, the great thing about Lego sets is that almost all sets are going to have low supply because manufacturing is going to stop. And so after that manufacturing stops, supply immediately becomes, constricted. And so over the next year, 2, 3 years, the amount of them available will only go down and down and down and down as more and more people buy and the third party marketplace starts to dry up. So that's the first thing. But what we need to do as Lego investors is just buy the ones that are more likely to have even lower supply than the other ones, right? And you could do things like buy exclusive sets that are sold in only one retailer because there's fewer of them manufactured, right? If Lego Group are only selling a set in one retailer, they're only going to manufacture just enough to satisfy that one retailer. So that set has fewer of them ever made. If you could see the number of Lego sets ever manufactured, that's the overall supply that we'll ever have. We cannot see that, but the number is definitely going to be a lot lower on sets that are exclusive. That's one thing. And then we could do things like we could look at other sellers on eBay, other sellers on Bricklink, see how much they have in stock and different things to tell us about overall expected supply in the aftermarket. So those are the big things that I think about. And then I just try to find the hidden gems that are right in the middle that have great demand or higher than usual demand and lower than usual supply.
There's a sweet spot to it because as an example of, rarity and lower quantity, I think of from San Diego Comic-Con in 2020. I have all of those sets because I was lucky enough to jump on them, but I have 2 Nebula MBs, but that's it. I'm not going to have a massive quantity. The same with the Bricklink designer program. I have from series 2, and some of those I've sat on not only for myself but to resell, and they will go up, but not at the same rate if I buy the DB5. If I bought 40 of those, which as I can think of, there's a lot of people in nostalgia with 007, and so maybe we'll get a higher return.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. I want to walk through an example. Just tell me what you would think. So, from my own perspective, a set I'd consider right now. I know that I think it's at 20 or 30% off the Disney Haunted Mansion. I think it's $28. What would be your evaluation on that? And if it would be a yes or no, and then what would be the next steps you would take to possibly go forward with it?
Yeah. So is that on lego.com?
It is.
30% off, yes. And they've got a great gift with purchase right now as well with the Steamboat. So really there's a couple of different things that I think about. I love the price point because these price points of the $30, $40 price range, I think that they have a lot of room to grow. It's if it feels like a good value set, right? Here's the thing. Some sets that are $30 don't feel like good value. And in fact, some of them are getting worse. Like the Harry Potter house banners right now are $35. The Moments Harry Potter sets were 30, so they're almost the same sets, like they're the same piece counts almost, and they just took a $5 increase in price. At the $35 mark, I feel like there's not the value is a little lacking. But add $5 to that, now you're at $40. Hedwig it just looks like a beautiful set. It's a really intricate design. When you look at Hedwig, you feel like that's a $60 set. At least that's my opinion. Now that's just a gut one. I look at Hedwig, I'm like, that could sell for 60. And when I feel that way about a set, like it should, maybe it's it's undervalued based on what you get inside the box. And you can look at things like the price per piece and stuff to kind of help with this. But really, what we're trying to get at is what's the value at the MSRP. And I think Hedwig is really great value at $40. I think those house banners are not great value at $35. But in general, that price point of the $40 range, a lot of the time you can see it being easy for the price to go up over time. Because fans are, if they really want to finish a collection, a lot of the times they're going to be happy to pay 60, 80 or higher for the set that was 40. Like Hedwig, I can very easily see hitting those prices, right? Now, that haunted mansion, I think is lacking a little bit in just the overall design and what's inside the box. But regardless of that, when you get a good enough deal, you're bringing down, the price that you have to pay a lot, and you have to reevaluate whether it's a good deal at a lower price now. And if you're getting it for 30% off with a great gift purchase, plus VIP points, plus maybe use a credit card, you get rewards and stuff like that. It starts to become a much better deal at that point. There's a lot of exclusivity to the set. I don't think it's ever going to be re-released. There's a lot of things that I like about it, and Disney collectors obviously are amongst the most passionate, up there with Star Wars. Almost, they're not quite at Star Wars level, but I think they're close. So I think the demand will be sustained in the future on it. What I would like to see is more similar type sets released in the future. So if they did mini versions of other attractions and different things like that, then it adds to what I call collectability. The Star Wars helmets have so much collectability. People in the future are going to want to go back and buy Stormtrooper. I'd love to see that for this set. I'd love to see a new range of all of these coming out every year, so that we know for sure people are going to want to go back and buy this mansion. So I think it's lacking a little bit in the collectability front, but we do have the mini castle. Do we have more? Do we have more on the horizon? I don't know if you've heard anything like that. So I see pros and cons to it. I'm not a buyer of that right now. But I know people in my community are, and they've done more research than I have. I haven't really looked at the supply and demand stuff in terms of like whether I expect it to be heavy supply in the future, but I actually don't think I would, because it's, you can't get it in all the retailers, and there's a lot of reasons to believe that it will become scarce pretty quickly, especially with that high demand. So those are some things that I think about without even looking at stuff on my computer and analyzing it a little bit more. Does that make sense?
No, it does. And the collectability factor is a good call out, because as you said before, like the modulars, I missed out on the brick bank, but now it's $500 instead of 160, I think it was when it was first released, or 180. I can't remember exactly. But and for Star Wars, there was the dioramas. Now they're going to the MIDI scale, which I think personally, I have a couple of them, the dioramas and the MIDI scale, because it becomes a collection. I started with the helmets. It got away from me because it just got ridiculous.
They can overdo it. They can overdo
Yeah,
it.
yeah, and I mean they hit the demand. There are people still buying all of them because they want to collect them all. And at some point, you do stop. Like for me, I have probably 100 brickheads, but I stopped because at
Yeah,
that point they were starting to make the $50 ones with 6 of them or whatever it
yeah,
was.
too much. You actually made I think I saw an Instagram or a reel from you on Instagram with the Star Wars helmets. I thought it was just, so it was like, I've got one, it's the TIE fighter pilot. Oh, I'll just add another one as the Stormtrooper, and then I'll add another one. Is that one of your reels?
It's possible, yeah.
Yeah. And I thought that was a perfect encapsulation of what collectability is, right? Because if you're a Lego investor and you want to find Lego sets that are more likely to have sustained demand in the future, and you just find sets that have that mentality where buyers, like, they can't have 6 of them without getting the 7th one. Another great example of that is the Speed Champions, right? Like the collectability factor of the
Mhm.
Speed Champions is huge. So those are kind of things that I look for.
Now, when you do find one that you're interested in, one, you already kind of said the price range about 30 or 40, but you also said 200 for the modulars.
Mhm.
Once you've found the one, how many do you usually buy?
It varies, and I like to try and think about it like a dollar amount as opposed to a price or a quantity amount, because of what you just said. The prices are so different. So, 10 modular buildings for $200 is very different than 10 Speed Champion sets. So I don't think about it as quantity of sets. I think more about the dollar value. And for me at this point in my business, I'm really looking to put at least $5,000 into every set that I get, but usually a lot more. because in a given year, I actually try to I try to invest only in around 15 sets. It goes up and down. So I don't, strictly try to keep it at 15, but usually it's less than 20, more than 10. It's like somewhere in that range. And, to hit the scale at that point, then you got to go deeper in each of them as opposed to wider. Because when I first started Lego investing, I was going wide. I had 100 and something SKUs. I was getting, one of this and two of that. And also, I was just going into Walmart during the clearance season and just getting a cart of different sets and all of this sort of thing. Now it's more about finding the hidden gems and going deeper on them. And so, for example, like there was 150 of Hagrid Hut that I bought last year. And that was mostly because I was able to get it at half price. And when you get a set at half price, it doesn't need to have the same incredible signals as a Lego investment that others do, because if you're getting it at half price, that the return on investment will be strong no matter what. Not, I want to actually rephrase that. Not no matter what, it still can't be a piece of trash, right? And there are some sets out there that will not, do well even at half price. But Hagrid Hut, I knew the demand would continue to be there. I knew that there was an element of collectability. There's a lot of these things that were going for it. So 150 units of that one, but I wouldn't get 150 units of something like a $200 modular building.
Mm-hmm. Now, what's your biggest loss?
Yeah, that's hard to answer because I really, and I know this sounds a little silly, but like I really don't remember any very huge loss with the Lego investing because, like I said, I usually get my money back. It may be $100 or I would say it's, really the biggest loss for me is the lost opportunity whenever I sit in a set for 3 years and it doesn't go anywhere, as opposed to really losing money. In terms of really losing money, I honestly can't point to any major losses. Usually it's close enough to break even. It could be $100. But some of my big mistakes are really around buying sets that, were not retiring for a long time or, just got pushed out. So
Mm-hmm.
some examples of that were the Porsche 911. I also bought the Treehouse, the Ideas Treehouse, like 3 years ago, expecting that to retire. That's still around today without any sign of retiring. So I had mistakes, but I can't say that I lost money because I was buying the sets at great prices. I was usually able to sell to get my money back. And that's kind of, the mistake is really more the time that I put into it as opposed to losing money, if that makes sense.
Right. Do you ever purchase for large quantities of the gift with purchase?
Yeah. The thing with gift with purchase is that it is harder to do scale because Lego Group have strict quantity limits on their websites and in stores. You're not really going to be able to go into your local Lego store and get 100 units of a set and get a gift for purchase with them all. They're just not going to do that for you. So usually it's more work than I deem to be really worth it to
Mm-hmm.
try to do it at scale because you probably get your accounts banned. You probably just get, you probably won't get very far. There are people who I know who have ways around some of these things, such as having friends and family go, buy stuff for them. A lot of this kind of thing is going on. For me personally, I don't think it's worth the time. Gift for purchase can be amazing, but usually I'll just buy my limits and go about my day. And, I
Mm-hmm.
do more of my scale buying from other retailers as opposed to buying from Lego Group directly, just because of the restrictions and different things that they have in place.
Got it. I know we're a little bit past time, but I had just a couple more questions.
Yeah.
What do
Yeah.
you think the number one theme is for investors?
It's a difficult question, and I think it depends a little bit on the experience level, because some of them are a little more, I would say, consistent than others. Some of the themes that have great winners don't always have great winners, and so then you need to get good at knowing what to look for. An example of that would be icons and creator expert. It's easy to point to that as a common one that people jump into for Lego investing. Like the modular buildings are a very common starting point for Lego investors. But in reality, not all icon sets actually do great as investments. Some of the Winter Village sets in most recent years have been a little poorer. Some of the vehicles can be
Mm-hmm.
amazing, but not always. So there's some of that we got to be aware of. And then there's other themes like Star Wars is the same thing, right? You can have incredible investments in Star Wars. You can also have sets that are just not great in Star Wars. So it's less consistent. So really what I'm trying to get at is depends on the person's experience level whether they should be looking at theme A or theme B. For a beginner, I think Speed Champions might be a good one to look at because it is a little more consistent. It's a little easier to see what's going to happen. The sets retire on a pretty identifiable schedule, and they retire except for the last wave or the first wave of the 8 studs. Like things got a little bit out of whack in terms of the timelines, but now they're back to just the schedule that you can kind of see and understand every 2 years. So for beginners, it's a little easier to start with that theme. I do also like some sets from Harry Potter, some sub themes in Star Wars. So like the helmets and the dioramas, I think are interesting. The only thing I would say about the dioramas is that they're untested yet in terms of investment. We are yet to see really how the demand continues in the future and different things. But really, all of these themes are pretty good. Star Wars, Harry Potter. I think Speed Champions, Icons, Ideas also can be pretty good, but it's another one that you need to. You can't just blindly throw darts and hope that it works, right? You got to look at the set because they're very different from each other. And
Hmm.
idea sets don't have as much collectability because each set is very different, and so you got to pay attention to that. In the last couple of years, there's certain Jurassic World sets that have been good, but others that are not so good. Certain Minecraft sets that are good, but others are not so good. So there's a lot of pros and cons to each of them. But for beginners, I think maybe look at Speed Champions is a good starting point.
No, that's it. And from my experience, that seems to be just from your own posts, understanding that return on investment, the investments at a different scale than buying large sets in smaller quantities. You can
Yeah,
do the opposite in that point. Now, as you said, you kind of focus on like between 10 to 15. What does your storage look like for this?
yeah. So it's not as bad as you might think. And the crazy thing about Lego is how much they cost, right? So a small box could cost $100. Or like if you're thinking about like the White House, the architecture White House retiring this year, it's like the box is like this size and it's $100, right? So to get 10 of them, that's $1,000 you just invested. And 10 of those boxes, it doesn't take up that much space really, right? So you can get a big Home Depot box, like a large Home Depot box, and you could easily fit 10 of those, maybe even 20 of those into those boxes. I use plastic tote bins because it gives me extra protection and I just like the extra peace of mind. But again, I've got friends in the community who use shelving to put all of their Lego sets, others who use just cardboard boxes. I actually use a combination of the three, but I don't use shelving much. I think a lot of the Lego investors who use shelving, or who are excited about the shelving, they just want to look at their collection. They just want to be excited about it a little bit, so they put it all on shelves where it's easily viewable. But if you want the best protection and you really want to take it seriously and have the scalability and different things, I recommend putting it inside something else, like a box
Hmm.
or a tote bin. So I have a lot of tote bins that are very large. They're 55-gallon tote bins, and they hold a lot of stuff. And so then, again, you can fill those with quite a lot of value. So when I first started, I started in Manhattan in a small apartment, right? So anyone who lives in New York City, you know how expensive it is and how little space you have. I lived in Manhattan when I first started with Lego investing. So a lot of people would think that it's impossible, right? Would think there's no way you could ever start Lego investing in a small space. I used a little kind of a section above my closet to put my first Lego investments, and I still was able to fit probably $2,000 worth of Lego sets in there because, again, a lot of value in a very small box. And so then over time, I scaled it out. Obviously, I moved out of New York City and I was able to grow it.
Hmm.
But you can start off with a small enough space.
Now, when you do purchase, say, let's say you bought 20 sets, are you bulk selling them when it comes time? Or are you taking five this year, in 6 months, another five?
Yeah, I don't hold back inventory intentionally. This is actually a strategy some people use where they stagger the selling price or the selling time so they can sell the next wave at a higher price, and then their average selling price would be higher. So like this year they'll sell 10 units, and then 6 months later they'll sell another 10 and another 10, and then if the price has gone up more, like they'll be able to sell the next 10 at a higher price. It's a strategy that a lot of people do. I personally don't do that. I don't do it intentionally, mostly because um, I prefer to get. So I really believe in compounding, and like compounding is where you essentially take your money back and you reinvest it in another opportunity. And with Lego, the way we get compounding is through turnover. So we want turnover because we sell and we get profits and then we reinvest. We can get, instead of one set the next time, we get two. And the only time we can do that is when we actually make the sale. So I prefer to just make the sales faster so that I can enjoy the compounding. So I try to reduce my hold time, and selling it all when it hits the market price is the best way to do that, in my opinion. So usually I don't intentionally hold back inventory to try and sell it later. Sometimes I hold it back because I want to sell through some inventory to make sure that I don't have stuff sitting in Amazon's warehouses for too long. Because when I sell on Amazon, I ship it to them, to Amazon. They actually take care of the selling for me. It's a program called Amazon FBA,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't want them to have like 100 of my units because you pay a fee every month for inventory being there. So I prefer to keep a handful and then ship them when I sell through that. Like I do it in waves for that reason, but not because I'm waiting to sell, if that makes sense.
Got it. No, that does make sense, and it's definitely a good way to understand that everybody can do this. It's like, what would be your first piece of advice for somebody who wants to get into this?
Um, First piece of advice is to take a minute before you start buying. Because the first thing that a lot of people start to do when they discover that Lego sets go up in value is to get way too excited and start to just buy everything. And I talk to people who unfortunately got too excited and started to buy before they really knew what they were doing. Um, you know, a lot of the sets are likely to going to go up in value over time. Like they're mostly all going to retire, right? Usually we see almost all Lego sets retire at some point. But that doesn't mean that they're all great investments, and some of them are a lot better than others. So the first thing I think anyone should do if they're looking to get into Lego investing is to take a minute to learn what you're doing, right? And you can do that by watching content on YouTube. You could do it by reading a bit about it. You could read some of the blogs and different things like that. And I definitely recommend, and this is what I do when I'm doing anything in life, right? I try to learn about it first. But with Lego investing, it's important to know what you're doing, and pay a little attention to the methods and the research before you start to go heavy on the buying. Now, I've seen people be very, very successful with Lego investing, even after having a bad first year, because they bought bad stuff in the beginning and then they figured out what they were doing wrong and they sold it, got their money back. Because again, a lot of the times you can sell it for cost, right? Like not always, but usually Lego holds its value pretty well. Get your money back, and then the next year you know what you're doing, and so then you start to buy stuff that's actually a really good investment. And so over time you learn from your mistakes. If you make a couple of bad decisions in the beginning, it's not the end of the world. You will learn from it, but I still think you should try to minimize that by learning a little bit up front and just kind of doing some of the research and watching some content on it.
Well, that's good to know. And my wife is a financial guru, so I will make her watch this. And I will. We already have some investments, and she trusts me enough that I know at least a little bit about where we should be buying things. Like you said, Disney, Star Wars is really good. We have some Bricklink sets, Chinese New Year, just to see and expect that they're one set, but somebody's going to want that someday. Just as you said, to not upscale, it's to provide that ability for somebody that didn't get that set to have it.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I love it. I love that you're into it already, and maybe we can convince you to start to scale that out a little bit and kind of tap into your Lego knowledge, because people with knowledge like you have a massive advantage in the world of Lego investing.
Well, you don't really have to convince me. I'll do it. I just need the funds.
I love it.
But as we wind down here, my final question, I ask this to everybody. How do you think Lego changed or affected your life?
Ooh. So my question might be, or my answer might be a little bit differently, just because we're looking at this for the last, hour. We've been talking about this more from a business standpoint. Although I'm a massive Lego fan and I love Lego, and you can see, behind me that I do build Lego sets as well. Um, my life has completely changed from Lego from the last couple of years, but it's more of the business side. Because I've been able to build up this business with Lego investing, everything has changed for me. I've been able to build a side income, right? I've been able to create an income on the side of my job that does not take tons of hours every year. It's something that can be done honestly in just a couple of hours a week, because after you learn how to buy the sets and you learn how to get them at great prices, really the rest of it is just waiting and watching the values go up, and it's great. And then when it comes time to sell, you can learn how to make that more efficient and streamline that. selling is something I think a lot of people are scared of, and they think, oh, like sending stuff on the post office is difficult and stuff, but it's really been made easy in the last couple of years. So it's really something I've been able to build up and do on the side of my full time job, and it's been able to create a lot of great opportunities for me and vacations that I've been able to take from the business that I've been able to create memories, great memories, and also the people that I've met has been incredible because I'm super ingrained in the communities, specifically in the Lego investing communities. I talk to people every day, as I mentioned, and we have a free Facebook group. I also have a Discord server and different things, and I'm talking to people all the time. Built some incredible relationships, made some really great friends of people who are not only Lego fans but also business people, so they speak my language, and it's just been a ton of fun. And it's just great to have those connections. So my life is completely different because of Lego, but it is maybe a little bit of a different answer than some of the other people you have on here.
No, and that's okay. That's the whole point because everybody has a different answer. Lego has impacted them in different ways as collectors, builders, designers, and business aspect. Which, as I continue to build my own brand, it's a whole thing to
Yeah,
understand the business side and understand this. Like, I'd love to talk offline a little bit more on how I can get into it. And
yeah.
as everybody else out there who might have this similar thing, shameless plug, throw it out there. Where can they find you and learn some more about this, so that they might be investors as well?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, for anybody who wants to just kind of start off slow, I recommend my YouTube channel. It's Brick.bucks. That is Bucks, Bucks, for money, for dollars. So Brick.bucks is my YouTube channel. You can go there. I make a lot of free content on it. For anybody who wants to take it a little bit more seriously, maybe you're already kind of dipping your toes in with Lego investing. I actually wrote an entire book about it. So I wrote a book. The book is called Winning Set Secrets, about how to pick the right sets. The entire book is literally about picking Lego sets to invest in. So some of the things we talked about tonight with the supply and demand and different ways that I think about picking sets, wrote it all into a complete book. I actually give the book away for free when people take a free trial of my membership. So you can actually get that at winningsetsecrets.com. Just go to winningsetsecrets.com and you'll see all the information there. You can actually get that book shipped straight to your house. So for people who want to start off, go to YouTube, just free content, just binge on the free content until you figure it out. For people who want to go a little bit more seriously, grab that book at winningsetsecrets.com.
Awesome. Well, I'm gonna have to grab the book. But Shane, this was great. Thank you so much for taking the time. I learned a lot, and hopefully, everybody listening or watching is going to learn the same. But I'm excited to see how your investment continues to grow, and see if anybody else reaches out and talks to you about the same thing, and maybe they'll move forward. But again, Shane, thank you so much.
Love it. Yeah, Garrett, thank you. It's been a lot of fun. I've really loved it. So thank you to you and your audience.
Of course. All right, everybody. You can re-listen to this or watch it on YouTube, and of course, stay tuned for more.